So the first question is, can you please summarize your presentations in a few sentences? What you talked about today was your
Okay.
topic.
Well, principally, I was asking a question whether we can talk about political Islam in Bosnia, given the historical development of the whole concept of political Islam. And in very short, I said that the concept is very much born out of the traumatic anti-colonial experience of the much of the Muslim world, which Bosnia was pretty much spared of. So Bosnia and in general Balkan Muslims followed the different path to modernity, and as such, the concept traditionally does not lend itself readily to the application to the Bosnian scenario. In general, again, I argued that Bosnian Muslims have stayed largely insulated from the developments in much of the rest of the Muslim world for the better part of 19th, 20th century, and Bosnians' exposure to the wider discourse of radical versus moderate Islam and all other sorts of frictions that exist in the Muslim world came only in early 90s with the Bosnian War and involvement of a number of, first of all, Muslim volunteers who came to fight to Bosnia, and then later, more importantly, a number of Muslim charities that have exposed Bosnia to these existing rifts in the Muslim world between different interpretations of Islam, to put it that way. I also argue that Bosnian Muslims have largely retained their mainstream interpretation of Islam, no matter how naive it might look to the outsider, and as such Bosnia is not very prone to not very fertile ground, I should say, to these radical interpretations of Islam. The numbers and statistics testified to this, but on the other side, also the very unfortunate situation is that Bosnia is also the battleground of unfinished inter-ethnic struggle between competing ethnic narratives in former Yugoslavia. As such, this Islamist trump card is often used by the media and ethnic elites by other nations against Bosnian Muslims, and times are such that every such accusation, unfortunately, kind of always produces negative effects in wider public and international media.
Okay. How would you describe or explain political Islam to a person who has no clue what it is, and also in a few sentences?
Hi, the whole concept is rather fleeting. It's very difficult to interpret it, and it's used in different ways depending on the need, depending on the circumstances. In the most, how would I put it, the most comprehensive definition of political Islam would be a belief held by an individual that Islam should govern the way society is ordered, and this individual's place in society. I would put it as a most comprehensive kind of definition of political Islam.
Many argue that Islam isn't okay for the Europe system, the European system. Where do you see the place of Islam in Europe?
The thing is, when discussing these kinds of issues, it's very difficult to speak about whether there is a place for Islam or any kind of ideology anywhere in Europe. It all depends on the circumstances in which it was born. We shouldn't forget that, for instance, communism, the whole communist ideology, a long time ago, was actually born out of Karl Marx and Friedrich Hegel's discussion of the situation of the workers in industrialized Europe, and as such they were actually calling for and expecting the communist revolution to break out in the industrial society, where the condition of the workers was really abysmal. However, no communist revolution ever took place in industrial country. It took place in poor peasant Russia with no industry worth speaking of. So it all depends on circumstances. When we discuss whether Islam has place in Europe, I should probably remind everyone that Islam has been part of European identity for centuries. Finally, us Bosnians are not, in Asia or anywhere, and we pretty much live in Europe and happy being where we are. And kind of it's the same thing as with a kind of discussion. What will happen with Islam in the future or something. For sure, there will be people who will be Muslims in Europe. How many and what their position in European societies will be, that's not for us to discuss. That's not for us to provide for. Not only for academics, but also politicians. It's a matter of realities. Whether Christianity or Islam or Judaism will take over the world, we have no idea about it. And once we have a situation where there is a certain interpretation of certain ideologies somewhere, then we can be in a position, as we are doing today here in this conference, of trying to understand what this particular position is. And we are trying to, in my opinion, understand the position taken by many Muslim groups in Europe and what their attitude towards European society should be. But on the other side, also the problem is that many times these kinds of interpretations are taken over by the more extremist agendas that are looking to sound the alarm all of a sudden and about the sudden fear of Islamic takeover or something, which I think are pretty far-fetched. I mean, there's like more than 500 million Europeans. Certainly you don't see the situation where in any foreseeable future there will be at least, I don't know, a few 100 million Muslims settling and taking over Europe. It's probably far-fetched, and kind of. So we'll see. I mean, we try to understand the situation. We try to provide directions for the future in these kinds of conferences. But on the other side, kind of discussing what is the place of Islam or any other religion or ideology in any society, it's a matter of practice. It's not a matter of us willing or wishing that it plays this role or that role, and it just happens out of practice.
One last question. In your presentation you talked about radicalization also going from Bosnia, and now we know about the difficult political situation in Bosnia still going on, and does this play a significant role in this process of people getting radicalized?
Well, yeah, I spoke about it at length, and there's plenty to say about it. I would say the most important thing is that for me, fear-mongering that there's this large-scale radicalization of Bosnian Muslims is pretty much part of this two-pronged media approach to this problem. One is local media, which is ethnic-dominated, which uses Islamic trump card against Bosnian Muslims in the ethnic struggle for the future of Bosnia, which has nothing to do with Islam or whatever else. The other one is the situation we are speaking in year 2016, where everything you say using the Islamic trump card is heard because media basically works on the kind of the information that that pay its scandal, and scandal gains your readership. But it's a really it's a topic that requires really long discussion and long answer, but I'll probably answer it one sentence. If the developments from 92 to 95, when 100,000 Bosnian Muslims were slaughtered wholesale while the whole world watched and did nothing, did not turn these Muslims into radicals, I don't think anything else can.
Thank you.
Thank you.